Hello and welcome to the Halloween special of Total Drama Multiverse Reloaded. This is episode 17, and it'll be our first real merge episode because last time was the comeback challenge, but this time will be like an actual thing. So yeah, let's just get into it with our pre-challenge section. So, as y'all remember last time, there is a mega alliance all the way from Mel to Bruce. I'm talking Mel, Patrice, Tristan, Ezekiel, Ash, 2D, Sky, Grim, and Bruce. Everyone except Daisy and Alice. However, there are a few cracks in this mega alliance. Namely, Bruce and Sky aren't on good terms right now after Sky lost her shit during the comeback challenge. The other thing is the relationship between Patrice and Sky and Alice. All three of them don't like each other right now. So while Sky was the leader, her whole team has kind of fallen apart. Everyone that was on her team, pretty much, right? I think that is literally everyone except Grim, who is kind of neutral on the situation. So that's kind of falling apart, which she doesn't like. I think Ezekiel is very happy Tristan's back and very happy that both him and Tristan get immunity for free no matter what happens today, because that's how it worked in the comeback challenge, and he's happy Daisy doesn't get immunity today. He's probably like the most happy that's left. Oh, also, the new goal right now is to try to break Ash and 2D out of Daisy's spell, as they are like the last ones who are really affected by it. Like the people who were originally on the other team aren't as affected by it, but Ash and 2D are the only ones that really are. So like they know they're in this alliance, but they still really like Daisy. But yeah, let's go ahead and get to our challenge section because this is a pretty interesting one today. So this one was originally going to be a challenge suggested by Twinberwolf based off the game Granny. However, I couldn't find a way to really fit that into this season well, so I do apologize, but I am going to scrap that one. Instead, to fit in line with our Halloween special today, we have Challenge 39, the Costume Contest. Now, I will say, this is hosted by Lauren, but I won't be putting that on the thing anymore since Lauren is now officially the host of Total Drama Multiverse. But yeah, let's get into the rules. Each contestant will have to create a costume based on a random contestant still left in the game. That's selected by Lauren, not by a randomizer. So, for example, if Patrice gets a costume, or if Patrice gets Daisy, she has to make a costume based on Daisy. Meanwhile, if Mel gets one based off, 2D, they have to do it, or she has to do one on 2D. Now, I will say, for example, if Bruce gets one based off Daisy, he does not have to dress up like a princess. He just has to fit that royal vibe, so he could go like a prince. It's just based on, right? Same with if freaking Patrice got Alice, she doesn't have to put ink all over herself. She can just go for an angel aesthetic, something like that. Anyways, they will be given 5 hours and tons of supplies from storage. Then each costume will be judged by Lauren on 2 things: looks and creativity, right? So obviously Bruce could just go the embarrassing but easy route of just wearing a dress, but that wouldn't be creative, and also it would make him look terrible, which she would agree with. So he'd get a low score on both of those. But let's say, Ash got 2D, and he just temporarily dyed his hair blue and used some of 2D's clothes. Yeah, that might make him look good, but it's not going to be creative at all. So yeah, something like that. The player with the highest score, so you can get 20 points max, the player with the highest score wins immunity, while the loser must wear the Dirty Bucky costume, the one that the Mimic wore while also wearing Owen. Or I guess he wasn't wearing Owen when he wore it, but he still wore it, and he's the Mimic, so it's very dirty and gross. It was also in the trash pile next to Owen's body. So there is like kind of blood on it. So it's regardless, it's gross, and they'll have to wear it until after the next challenge. So after the challenge in episode 18 is when they take it off. They have to keep it on for humiliation and as a disadvantage. So let's get into who has which person that they have to base their costume off of. Right, so we'll first go over Mel. And Mel was given the task of making a costume based off of Grim Foxy. Now, I think we're not going to go into how they do or what their plan is just yet, but I think that just hearing about this, she would probably be pretty hype about that. Then we have Patrice, and Patrice has to make a costume based off Ezekiel, which I think she would start laughing her ass off because she has a really good idea for that. Remember, Ezekiel and Patrice are pretty good friends. Also, one thing I've completely forgot to mention is the relationship between Mel and Alice. Ever since the teams became 2 instead of 3, they've been split up and they've kind of grown apart. They were good friends at first, but now that Mel's wanting to hang out with more humans, plus they're on the opposite sides of alliances, they haven't been hanging out nearly as much. They're not like full-blown enemies, though. Anyways, as for Tristan is given Alice, and I think Tris would be pretty excited about that and would probably do pretty good. Which, oh yeah, that reminds me. If another thing, if Tristan or Ezekiel win this challenge, I think that they will both be given immunity, and then their immunity they already have will carry over to the next round. So if they win this challenge, they can be immune for 2 rounds. And then I guess they could just be infinitely have an extra immune if they just kept winning. But I doubt that'll happen. Now, here we come to the main reason Lauren decided to make this challenge, and that's because she wanted to troll Ezekiel by giving Ezekiel Tristan. So Ezekiel has to dress up in like a super goth, emo aesthetic, which I think that Ezekiel would start crashing out about, and Tristan would be so excited. I think Tristan, already knowing that the both of them have immunity, would just want to help Ezekiel with his costume. And then as for Bruce, as for Ash gets Bruce, which he's just going to go for like a Batman look, which shouldn't be too difficult. Also, if you're wondering how they have all these supplies right now, it's because it's Chris's wardrobe. I feel like Chris would have just about everything because he's so narcissistic. And cocky and all about like his looks and stuff. So yeah, Ash gets Bruce. Tootie gets one based off Patrice, which will be a little interesting for him to try to figure out something that he can do for that. Then Sky is not happy about hers at all because she gets Daisy, which means she has to dress up as a princess, and I think Sky would not be one to like royalty and all that. She'd think it's all super boring, and she would hate all the rules. It would remind her of her mom. So then we come to Grim Foxy, and Grim Foxy, or just Grim as I've been calling him, gets one based off Tootie. Now I gave Grim Tootie because not every single person here is human, except because everyone here is human except for Alice and Grim, but at least Alice is humanoid. Grim is just completely different. So I just gave him the most, well, I guess in universe, Lauren gave him the most simple human here, just like costume wise. Just so that he can try to even look like a human, because how's he even going to wear clothes without them burning off him? So, yeah, he's getting kind of cooked there, literally. And then, as for Bruce gets one based off Mel, which he decides that it should be pretty easy to do something like that. I mean, she literally just wears bandages, pretty much. Then we get to Daisy, and actually, even though Sky got Daisy, Daisy got Sky. So, yeah, she decided to swap those two. And Daisy would be okay with that. She has to also go for a, kind of adventure look, which, yeah, I think she'd be okay with. And then, as for Alice gets one based off Ash, which she would be, indifferent about. So let's go through and we'll talk about how I think they'll do, and then we'll go through one last time saying their scores. So I think that Mel, who got Grim Foxy, would probably kind of go for. Again, they have like everything in this closet, so she'd probably be able to find some sort of like, I don't want to say furry costume because Chris definitely isn't a furry, but it's something like it, like some sort of fox costume, and then she wouldn't set it on fire, but she would paint a lot of the areas where there is normally fire that you can see on Grim Foxy orange, and then she would also you be able to pretty easily find a weapon because it's Chris. That and she would kind of find like some sort of sickle or something to that she would just hold to be like Grim Foxy's sickle hand. And then maybe she could do like claws or something, but I think she'd do pretty well. As for Patrice with Ezekiel, she goes for a little bit of a different approach, going for the mutant version of Ezekiel because she knows about that because she is friends with Ezekiel and they've talked about that. They probably talked about that back in episode 1 of the season whenever they sat and talked long into the night. Which, by the way, another thing that reminds me of is Patrice and Ezekiel both have small crushes on each other, but neither of them would ever admit it. Um, and then Tristan would probably go all out going with Alice. Or not he, Tristan would find like stuff for ink, Halo, the horns, like go all out. Because part of Tristan's character is that Tristan's into a bunch of, I'm into goth aesthetics, but I feel like Tristan would be really good at cosplay. It sounds like something that Tristan would do. Um, so yeah, overall, I think Tristan would be amazing at this. Meanwhile, we come to Ezekiel, and while Tristan was able to get that one done pretty quickly, Trish spent most of the time helping Ezekiel. And by helping, I mean chasing Ezekiel around holding a bunch of goth supplies because Ezekiel would just refuse to do it. But Tristan, even knowing that they both have immunity already, would want to see Ezekiel in all the goth clothes because it'd be really, really funny. Because Ezekiel would all be finding that so weird. So he's come around to Tristan wearing it, but he would never wear it himself. So eventually Tristan's able to chase him down and force him into some, and eventually Ezekiel gives up. As for Ash, I think Ash would be kind of basic. I think he'd just kind of go for a simple Batman costume, like one you'd find at Spirit Halloween or something. I don't know. Nothing too interesting when it comes to Ash. But then when it comes to 2D, 2D would kind of go for an adventurer look because he got Patrice, and there's not really much to go off of with Patrice. I doubt he can fit in a 13-year-old girl's shirt. So, so I think that he'd probably instead go for just a full-on adventurer look, survivalist look like Patrice kind of is. And then there's Sky, and I think that Sky would probably, just for the immunity, because she's not like sure about how safe she really is. Like there's this Mega Alliance, but I think most of the people in the Mega Alliance know there's too many factors. It's not gonna last very long. She would probably get into a full dress, which again I don't know why is Chris has a full dress in his wardrobe, but actually probably for Chef because remember Chef did wear like 5 dresses. I swear he was into that. He did that like in almost every season, sometimes multiple times per season. Which I mean, sure, do whatever, but I always thought that was kind of funny how often that happened. Anyways, with Sky, I think that she'd wear like a full, probably like a blue dress, and then she'd keep her Sky hat on though, because she would refuse to take that off. Oh, which again, I guess this is a really good challenge to do right before the merge, because going through everyone 3 times reminds me of a lot of things that I do need to say out loud. Something that I have never brought up never ever brought up, which I probably should. Sky's hat is named Ollie, and it's alive. I probably should have brought that up. It's kind of like her pet. She can turn in from a hat into like this weird, huge pink puffball creature with wings, and she can ride it. And I've never mentioned that because it's never come up, but also it's like a Pokemon. All it can say is Ollie. Yeah, that's how that works. So she refuses to take that off, but I think Ollie would probably be able, since it can transform into a hat, probably transform into like a tiara or something. And that she would refuse to use makeup. I think that Sky would completely refuse to use makeup. Now, as for Grim Foxy and 2D, this one would be kind of bad. I think that we know Chris has like body doubles, or like not like a body suit, but he has like recreations of himself. Chef uses one in Total Drama All Stars, and well, he doesn't wear it, but he like is like he acts like he's Chris by shaking it in front of the screen to get them to go to a new objective point, which I think is the Chris face statue. Y'all know what I'm talking about. There's also a bunch of Robo Chris McClanes from Pocket Tail, and they're in the storage, so those would be there too. So I think he would probably stitch together a bunch of Chris's to look like 2D, and then he would probably, I don't know how he would make his eyes white. He would remove his eye patch, and then I think his eyes would be fine. And then for his ears, I think he'd probably find a big blue wig, and since there's not a lot of holes on the top, it wouldn't catch on fire. So he'd have a big blue wig to cover his ears, but it would be really big, and a lot bigger than 2D's hair. And as for his sickle, he would just hide it behind his back or something. He's not hiding that. And then he would just wear some normal, like, Hawaiian clothes, which is what 2D is wearing. And then as for Bruce with Mel, Bruce has never really looked into Mel. He's actually always thought Mel was a zombie and just wrote her off as a highly intelligent zombie who does not need to consume brains. Because, I mean, she's green, she bleeds black blood. He's never really hung out with her to see otherwise. And she acts super aggressive and also acts borderline insane sometimes. So, yeah, he goes for like mummified zombie look. That's the other thing, is all the bandages on her. He never looked into why that is. And that'll come back later. So then there's Daisy, and Daisy got Sky, and I think Daisy would do an okay job as doing Sky. I think that she would probably try to force Sky to give Ollie over to her, which Sky would obviously refuse to do, since Ollie's kind of like Sky's best friend / pet. And then as for the rest of her look, she'd probably just wear some generic like adventurer gear. So then finally there's Alice, who is based off Ash, and I think using her ink she can make like a Pokeball, and then out of ink, and then I think that she would just wear some random clothing like that is kind of similar to Ash's. So again, nothing too crazy. Maybe like the hat. She's got some clothes on like him. Nothing too creative, which will come in our next bit, which is when Lauren ranks all of them. And we first start with Mel. So Mel walks out with her like full cosplay, and remember, they're ranked out of 10 on looks and creativity. So just overall looks and their creativity. So for looks, she's given probably an 8, maybe a 9, because she can still tell that, yeah, this was only made in a few hours, but it's still really good for a few hours. I think probably a 9. So Mel is given a 9 for looks. And then, y'all can't see it, but I am keeping track of these numbers so I don't forget on another screen. And then for creativity, with a lot of the cool stuff she did with like the weapon for the sickle, and the painting the orange, and the fox costume and all that, I think she'd be given a 10 for creativity, meaning that Mel gets a 19. So she is pretty much safe. She got 1 point away from max. So when Patrice walks out, she looks all mutated, and she's got her hair like looking green, looking brown. I mean, and she's wearing like torn up clothes. I think she'd just ask Ezekiel for like his hoodie and his beanie, and Ezekiel would just give it to her since they're friends. Not permanently, but yeah. Also, that's a thing where lovers will the boy in the relationship will give the girl the jacket. I've never understood that, or like the jersey sometimes. So that happens, which they probably have a lot of blushing. It's starting to become apparent that they have a little bit of a crush on each other, both of them, which will come back in the post challenge section. But before that, we get to Tristan, who walks out in full one of probably I mean y'all know, probably just if there was a professional cosplayer on the island, it would be Tristan, and I think pretty easily gets a 10 on both, giving Tristan a 20, which gives Tristan max score, which we'll come back to later. That means that Tristan might win immunity here. And as for Patrice, I completely forgot to actually say the scores for Patrice. I think Lauren would find it pretty funny. Probably give Patrice a 10 for creativity, but for overall looks, she really didn't do that much. Or I know, sorry, a 10 for looks, but for overall creativity, she didn't do that much. No, I am right. I was right the first time. I'm stupid. She just made her face green and made her hair look brown, and then wore Ezekiel's clothes. So for looks, she gets a 6, but for creativity with the mutant thing, she gets probably not a 10, probably like an 8. So overall, she gets a 14, right? Is that right? Yeah, 6 plus 8 is 14. Okay. Anyways, moving on to Ezekiel, who originally doesn't want to come out on stage, but Tristan pushes him out, and he's in full goth gear. I'm talking makeup, the boots, the black hoodie. Tristan painted his fingernails. He hates it. He's blushing like crazy. He hates it. But I think Lauren would just be laughing and laughing and laughing. And just to embarrass him more, she would say, okay, so for creativity, I'm only going to give you a 2 because you didn't actually come up with anything. It was all Tristan. But for looks, I'm going to give you a 10 because you're rocking that style. And that would probably... She only does that to make Ezekiel feel super embarrassed, which they don't dislike each other anymore, but remember, they are still siblings. As for Ash with Bruce, he gets a 5 on both. They're literally just it's just basic Batman costume. This would probably be the point where they have a little compilation showing a few of, if this were an actual episode, they have a compilation showing a few of the less interesting ones. So he just gets, I just accidentally punched my desk. That really hurts. Ow. Anyways, oh my gosh. He just gets a 10. Then we move on to Judy, who had Patrice, and he walks out with his whole, adventurer look, survivalist look. And I think for looks, he would get probably a 6. But for creativity, being able to translate that into him, he probably gets a 7. So overall, gets a 13, I believe. Yep. Then we come to Sky as Daisy. Now, Sky saw that Tristan got a 20, and not wanting Tristan to win immunity twice, as well as in case she wants to get Tristan out for some reason, as well as wanting herself to win immunity, decides, you know what, screw it, I'm going to go put on the makeup. So Sky goes on, she puts the makeup, and she walks out, and she just, everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's freaking beautiful. Now, that's not me personally saying that, although I agree. No, I'm kidding. It's a Fortnite skin. But, anyways, she comes out on stage in, full princess gear, and Patrice Lauren is like, holy crap, she's speechless. So Sky, for creativity, it really isn't actually that creative, but she just looks so good. She rocks it so hard that she gets a 20 on both. Lauren even says something about the makeup is the perfect final touch, and Sky's like, I know. So now we have two people with the max score. Then we come down to our final four that we're going to talk about with Grim Foxy as 2D. Now, Grim Foxy walks out, and pretty much the opposite happens. Everyone can barely look at him. It looks terrible. He knows it looks terrible. Yeah, I know it's not great. It's just disturbing. So for creativity, he is given, and she throws him a bone. He gives him like a 6 because it is a lot of work. But for looks, she gives him a 1, which gives him a full score of just 7. So then we get Bruce as Mel, and I'm actually going to come back to this one. So then we get Daisy as Sky, and she walks out, and I think Lauren probably is just like, this is basic. Same with Alice. We'll go with both of them at the same time. She's kind of like, these are basic. It's all right. And she probably gives them both like, I think maybe a little higher than like Ash's, for example. But I think Daisy will get like a 12, and Alice like a 6 for each, and Alice will get a 4 for creativity, so she'll get 10 in total. But then we go to Bruce and Mel. Now, or Bruce with the costume based off Mel. Now remember, Bruce is trying to go for like a zombie. And who has traumatic experiences with zombies here? Patrice does. So, once he walks out, by the way, I'm going down the order that they are on the tier list, right? With Mel first, Alice last. But if this were an actual episode, it wouldn't go that way, because they wouldn't have a whole alliance go, then this alliance go. That's not how it would go. So we're saying that Mel walks back through the Patrice walks back through the curtains as Bruce is walking out, and Patrice gets freaking terrified. And I mean, like, actually freaks out. Has, like, a full-on panic attack because I think Bruce goes all out with, like, the bloody jaw. He gets his jaw all bloody. He's not wearing his mask. Kind of like, he looks like a real zombie. So she freaks out and starts crying and has like a full-blown panic attack and runs away, which Lauren feels bad for. But I think that Tristan and Ezekiel, who have already gone by this point, both go and comfort her. Anyways, for Bruce, he does just get probably for creativity, probably like a 6, but for looks, he does get probably a 10, just for like he was able to do that to Patrice. So he ends that with a 16. So quickly, let me go through our numbers. Mel got 19, which is within the middle. Patrice got 14. Tristan got 20, so we'll keep that one up. Ezekiel got 12. Ash got 10. 2D got 13. Sky got 20, so we'll keep that up. Grim Fox got 7, we'll keep that up. Bruce got 16. Daisy got 10. And Alice got 10. Daisy got 12. Alice got 10. So then we'll talk about Grim. Grim Foxy got 7. And because of that, he is forced to wear the Bucky's costume. Now, the one thing that he is allowed to do is stick his sickle out of one of the hands, because it just wouldn't fit in there. It really wouldn't fit anyway. It's kind of just looks hilarious. And there's burn marks all over it already. It'll still last, though. And it makes his movement stiffer than it already was. So he doesn't like that. But the main two we need to talk about are Tristan and Sky. They both got 20. However, I think that if Bruce is the last one, right before him is Patrice, and everyone else is already gone, Tristan and Ezekiel both go to help Patrice, meaning that they were going to have a tiebreaker, but since Tristan left, Lauren decides to count that as a forfeit, meaning that Sky does win immunity here. So Tristan and Ezekiel have immunity already, but Sky has immunity as well. So we go pick up in our post-challenge section, where we need to talk about Patrice, Sky, and Ezekiel first before we go to our elimination ceremony. And for them, Patrice ends up running deep into the woods and just having like a full-blown Puss in Boots style panic attack. And Tristan and Ezekiel, it takes them a while to search, but they end up finding her. And I think that after a conversation about her trauma with the zombies killing her friend Nate, which I think, yeah, they're just friends, as well as killing her uncle in front of her, she's seen so many people get ripped to shreds. Most of her favorite friends at that point, most of her friends at that point, honestly, were just plants that couldn't even talk to her, but they had like personalities. But most of them were dead, as far as she knew as well. She even thought Green Shadow was dead for a while before, obviously, Green Shadow returned after Total Drama Multiverse Season 1. So, yeah, seeing a zombie just freaked her out to the point where she, like, couldn't even move. Well, I mean, she could move really fast, but, like, she was paralyzed with fear for a second. And eventually, she doesn't, like, pass out, but the three of them sit there talking for a while, and they're just in the woods, right? And I think that eventually Patrice falls asleep and goes to sleep on Ezekiel's lap, which Ezekiel, who by the way is still in all the goth stuff, is Patrice is still in her whole like mutant Ezekiel thing, and Tristan's still in all the Alice stuff. They're still in their costumes. Ezekiel is like blushing like crazy because Patrice is asleep on his lap, and Tristan's starts talking to Ezekiel about what he really thinks about Patrice, and Ezekiel's like, I don't know, I have feelings, but I don't know what to really do. It's kind of awkward. And Tristan's like, well, I'd say just let it happen naturally. Little did they know, Patrice was still partially awake and did hear this conversation, but she just smiled and then drifted back off into slumber. So, yeah, that's cute. Anyways, we can get to our elimination ceremony now, where there's a lot of stuff going on. We have our Mega Alliance. But and by the way, some people are still in their costumes that want to be, some aren't. I think, like, for example, Bruce goes and completely washes up. He goes and apologizes to Patrice, and says that he didn't know. He also apologizes to Mel, who came up to him and is like, bro, I'm not even a zombie. I think, like, Tristan would probably want to stay in costume. Sky wouldn't, though. Stuff like that. People who want to stay in their costumes will. People who don't. But when it comes to elimination, I don't think that the fractures would fracture yet. I think... Well, do I think that? Because, I mean, realistically, there's too much going on to where this holds. Like, this was all made way too quickly. So, again, let's just go over these fractures. We have Mel, Sky, or not Mel. We have Patrice, Sky, and Alice all not liking each other. Bruce and Sky. We have, which are a lot of problems with Sky. We have Tootie and Ash still liking Daisy, and we have Tristan and Patrice and Ezekiel are like the only solid three right now. Which I think is where things start to shift. Oh, and Grim is like completely split between Sky and Bruce. He doesn't know where to go there. So I think what Daisy and Alice do is they work together to get under some people's wings. I think Daisy is able to manipulate Ash and 2D because Ezekiel was too busy talking with these two to goof off with these two. They stayed out there for a while until Patrice woke up. And And, well, because I doubt that. I think Ezekiel had tried to carry her back to camp, but he probably wouldn't be strong enough to. And then Tristan is also, like, super weak, so, yeah. But since they were gone for so long, these two were able to get manipulated by Daisy. This is definitely a Halloween special, y'all, because this is going to be a pretty long episode. Anyways, as y'all just saw, Daisy manipulated Ash and Tootie, while I think Mel is still pretty offended by Bruce, and they don't really have that good of a relationship already. Or, well, I mean, like, they don't have really any sort of relationship already. So I think that Alice is able to reconnect with Mel, because they've been growing apart recently, but she's able to be like, hey, do it for your old friend, both of us. Bruce already was rude to you, and yeah, I think she'd be able to get in good with Mel. I also think she's able to get Sky, because I think that Sky would be pretty, like, really, really anxious right now. She has immunity, thank the Lord, but she's really not liking her spot in the game. So when she hears this golden opportunity to make a big move, she decides to jump on out of pure paranoia. So that makes 6 people compared to Patrice, Tristan, Ezekiel, Grimm, and Bruce's 5. Which actually I do need to talk about one more person here. Well, first I'll say Patrice, Tristan, Ezekiel, and Bruce. Bruce because he's been kept out of it on purpose, and the other 3 because they were in the woods for so long. All are still under the impression that, oh, we're just getting out Daisy tonight. But Grimm was actually approached by Sky and asked to help them vote out Bruce, which Grimm obviously was against, because he wants the 2 of them to reconnect so that they can be the biggest power trio on the island, because those are probably the 3 most powerful contestants left in the game. Because Daisy was given infinite power, but it's like political power, right? As a princess, right? That kind of thing. Not like she's super strong physically, which she already is strong physically for a woman her age, which I guess is prime age, but just for her kind of archetype, she's definitely pretty strong. But she's not Batman, she's not Sky, and she's not Grimm. But Grimm actually does go to Bruce and is like, dude, they're voting you out tonight. And Bruce would spend a lot of the time trying to go for Sky, or trying to get Sky back on their side. But I think that the pure paranoia would make Sky still vote Bruce tonight. And because of that, as well as Daisy and Alice being perfectly okay with them going for Bruce, and Mel being offended by Bruce, and Ash and 2D being under Daisy's thumb, the 2 of them are okay with it, because Bruce is one of the biggest strategic players here and one of the biggest challenge threats here. So I think they'd be pretty okay with voting for Bruce. So in a 6-5 vote, with 6 votes Bruce, and honestly probably 2 votes Sky, I think Grimm and Bruce would change their votes to Sky. So actually in a 6-2-3 vote, while this kind of golden trio right here would vote for Daisy. They're the only ones who actually voted for Daisy. Bruce is eliminated, and his time in the game has ended. And one last thing I need to talk about. So Lauren doesn't actually have a Rift gun right now, or she still has a Rift watch, but she doesn't have a Rift gun. So when someone is eliminated, they kind of just have to wait on the island, but there will be no more comebacks or added characters the rest of the season. What you're seeing right now is our top 10, obviously excluding Bruce over here. So Daisy, Ash, 2D, Mel, Alice, Sky, Patrice, Tristan, Ezekiel, and Grim Foxy. Those are your top 10. But that's going to do it for this Halloween special. Like I said, this is going to end up being like 40 minutes long, 45 minutes long, because I still have the post-credit scenes to get to. So, yeah, I guess I'll let y'all get to that. That's going to do it for this one, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye, guys. The last time we caught up with the Mimic and Magica, they had stolen Chris's rift gun and rifted themselves off of the island. However, where did they go? Well, they went to the My Hero Academia reality. This is the reality where Izuku, Monica, and Agatha all resonate. So let's update this reality a bit. So let me move these two down for a second and bring these two up. I'm not going to bring Agatha up since she's not important right now. So actually, I will quickly say about Agatha. Agatha is too young by like what her physical age is to go to UA High. So she is currently living with Izuku's mom, which is a very big adjustment for Izuku's mom to say the least. Meanwhile, Izuku and Monica have both made their way into UA High and become pretty good heroes. Now, most of the MHA storyline has been going pretty similar ever since, except for there would probably be an arc, if this were its own show, of Monica having to get over Izuku hanging out with Ochako, which, even if Ochako ever gets feelings for Izuku, they will stay as friends in this timeline since Izuku is already with and going to stay with Monica. So that would probably be a pretty big arc. Outside of that, though, they're basically just living heavily ever after right now, except for the fact that it still is the MHA reality and they still have to deal with a lot of villains. Mainly the League of Villains, which is what we're going to talk about right now. So as I move both these two down and bring the Mimic and Magica back up, when they both rifted here, the Mimic they both kind of hid in hiding, or were in hiding for a while, until they saw a huge fight break out between the villains and the heroes at the camp. That's where they were. They were just like in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere. Well, they found the camp from season 3 of MHA, as the heroes were there, and they stalked them for a bit. And after stalking them for a bit, they found the villains. And as the League of Villains were attacking, they watched. Now, obviously being impressed by these insane creatures, they both decided to see if they could join them. Now, remember, they call these people creatures. They're pretty much all humans, all of them except Spinner. All the League of Villains are humans. But to them, the Mimic's AI, and Magica is like a duck thing. So both of them aren't humans. So to them, they want to join these creatures. Well, they do, and they join the League of Villains, where they learn quite a bit about everyone, but they learn a lot about Toga as well. Now, Toga, her main thing that we need to talk about right now is this person is the definition, the mascot of Yandere. What does that mean? That means basically what Monica is, or was. Whoever she's in love with, she wants to kill that person, like wear their skin. She's like completely insane, like completely off her rocker. She will kill anyone, or wants to kill anyone who that person's in love with, but she takes it a step farther and actually will fall in love with that person too, regardless of what's between their legs. She doesn't care. She also has the very scary ability to any blood that if she takes someone's blood, which is the thing on her back, she can stab it into someone and it takes their blood and drinks that blood. She can shapeshift into them. This later gives her the abilities of that person. She just hasn't had that unlocked at this point in the timeline just yet. Right now, in canon, she has a crush on Izuku and by extension Ochako. In this timeline, she has a crush on Izuku and by extension Monica, which the Mimic knows a little bit about Izuku, which is why Toga is so interested in the Mimic, because the Mimic has mimicked Afton before, who has met Izuku before. Not for a while, but knows a little bit. And Toga will take anything, even if it is just that small of a sliver. So, the Mimic and Magica join the League of Villains, and since timelines work differently, and depending on what you're talking, or what universe you're talking about, right? For example, the Owl House universe is going slower than the DuckTales universe, or just every universe is going, like, the timeline's going faster or slower. Because this timeline's going a little faster, as we saw in season 1 with Izuku already having his powers by the time he helps Monica with her panic attack, then they're able to already kind of be in the League of Villains. Like, they are official members. Everyone welcomes them as a member of the League of Villains. And the heroes know about them, too. Specifically, Izuku and Monica. Well, all that to say, we now get to bring Afton into the picture, because Afton put a tracker on the Mimic, as he did with most of his creations. And with this multiversal tracker, he is able to find the Mimic. And if Malik and Zombos were able to come to an agreement, and Death and Malik were able to come to an agreement, all these people were able to come to an agreement, put their sides together, Sen's able to come to an agreement with humans, then Afton believes he can come to an agreement with the Mimic. So it takes a lot of convincing, but he does. And the Mimic's like, but I'm happy. I'm happy here. I like being a member of the League of Villains. And Afton is able to still convince both it and Magica that they can take revenge on everyone on the island. And then they can have the League of Villains be so much bigger. Their League of Villains, right, or their group of villains is 30 times more powerful than the My Hero Academia League of Villains, which obviously would probably piss off Shigaraki and some of the other members, but it doesn't matter to him. So I think Magica eventually decides, you know what, I'm going to join them. And the Mimic reluctantly decides, I'm going to join them as well. But I think that Afton would then turn to the League of Villains and be like, all right, does anyone else want to join? And I think everyone else would be like, hell no, get your creepy furry ass out of here. And I think that would happen with everyone except for, I think Shigaraki would be pretty interested in it, but All for One would tell him no. But I think the only person who's actually going to switch up on them is Toga. Now that's kind of obvious. She's the only one I actually put a Pinterest icon on here for, which I get all these icons from Pinterest of all places. So Toga decides to betray the League of Villains and go with the Mimic and Magica. And the main reason she does that is because of something Afton tells her. He says that, because he knows that these people are in the same reality as Izuku and Monica, so he says out loud, oh, by the way, if any of y'all have a personal vendetta against Izuku or Monica, they're on the team with the people we're trying to defeat. So that would push Toga over the edge to want to go join them. So Afton, Mimic, Magica, Afton was already there. I just said that, he was already there. Mimic, Magica, and Toga join the Villains group, which is getting really big right now. But we still have 2 more people that I'm going to add. However, that's not the only team that is going to begin forming. Afton has lied about a lot of things, but he actually wasn't lying about Izuku and Monica, as Chris and Chef and the rest of the team all made their way to UA, where they explained the situation. They met up with Izuku and Monica, and they explained the situation. Now, they were asked if they wanted Agatha to join, but they said no, they don't want Agatha to join this new team that they're building, because they've been liking seeing Agatha really settle down. She's starting to hang out with kids her age and really just chill out. So they don't want her to go into something like this right now. And then they ask if any of the other heroes would like to join, and for similar reasons, I think that everyone would be like, they're going through enough already. Well, no, I guess not for similar reasons as Agatha, but for all those characters are already going through a lot. They don't want to put them through anything else. So Izuku and Monica both join this new team of heroes.